All right, man, peace. So, brothers, about a month or so ago, the NBA inducted into its Hall of Fame Grant Hill, Steve Nash, Ray Allen, and Jason Kidd, four of the most prominent players of the last 20 years. And, of course, in this segment, Miss Rachel Nichols decided that she was going to bounce off of the dome of Paul Pierce certain questions regarding each of those four players. And he responded back in a way that only the quote-unquote truth can. He responded back with the truth. So, of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
So I don't remember exactly the first time I met Grant Hill. We're both from the Washington, D.C. area, so it was somewhere around there. And I know it was about 20 years ago, but I can't recall the exact circumstances.
You probably ran into him butt naked in the locker room, and you let him know that you're willing to do anything, and you mean anything, to get a story. Allegedly.
What I do remember, though, is walking away thinking what everyone else does the first time they meet Grant. What a great guy.
Yeah, I bet.
It's ridiculous for someone to be that fun and smart and gracious, and when he is inducted into the Hall of Fame tonight, I'm pretty confident what a great guy Grant is will be the first thing people talk about, which is lovely. Except Grant Hill happened to also have been a truly badass basketball player.
Yes, he was. Grant Hill was one of the most prominent players of the mid to late 1990s. He was viewed as being the next evolutionary step in that Dr. J. Michael Jordan paradigm in regards to being an ambassador for the NBA. He was quote-unquote well-spoken. He was a phenomenal athlete. He was a great leader. And unfortunately for him, it was all derailed when he suffered that very, very bad ankle break that he never truly rebounded from.
Like stupid good. And we should really be talking more about that too.
The NBA was trying to sell him so hard in that 94-95 season, his rookie year, while Jordan was out. They spent most of the mid-90s trying to find Michael Jordan's replacement. And as an aside, not to digress, but that's why I state that Michael Jordan is without a doubt, in my view, the greatest player in the history of the NBA. And I feel like the only three players that you can use as a possible counter to that assertion is Magic Johnson, Bill Russell, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Those are the only three players, in my view, that you can make a real argument for being the greatest players in the history of the NBA other than Michael Jordan. Why is that? Because when Jordan started to win championships in the early 90s, he completely changed the overall NBA paradigm in regards to what the NBA owners were looking for, what the networks were looking for, and what the fans were looking for in regards to who should be considered the best player on the team and who should the offense revolve around. Before Jordan, everything was about making sure that you had a great playmaker and a great center. So it was Magic and Kareem, it was Oscar and Kareem, it was Bill Russell, Bob Cousy, so on and so forth. You had to have a great front line, like the Boston Celtics, or also like the Lakers, who had Worthy and Kareem. With Jordan was the first player that had NBA GMs decide that, you know what, we're going to start looking for a great two-way wing who's extremely athletic. So that's when you started to have the Grant Hills, the Penny Hardaways come into the NBA. You also had other guys who fell by the wayside, like Harold Miner. But Jordan was the person who changed that paradigm. And then, of course, in the late 90s, you had Kobe, you had Ray Allen, you had Tracy McGrady, you had Vince Carter, you had Paul Pierce. So all of those players started to trickle into the league from about 94 to 98, and that was all under the inspiration of Jordan. And that's why we see all throughout the 2000s, we have hero ball, which, to be quite frank with you, almost ruined the NBA. But just to get back to the point, Grant Hill was a great player. He truly was a LeBron James-esque prototype.
Here are the numbers from Hill's 6 seasons in Detroit. Do you know the only other players to put up better numbers in their first 6 years in the league? Oscar Robertson, Larry Bird, and LeBron James.
Well, that's definitely Grant Hill's ilk, those three players, even though I think that Larry Bird was better than all of them.
That is a list. Hill was a point forward before point forwards existed, a 6'8". He could cross you up, even if you were Michael Jordan. And then he could dunk on you, even if you were Dikembe Mutombo. He was a walking explosion for the Pistons, which is why there was so much excitement when he got to Orlando to team up with Tracy McGrady.
All of that talk about all the excitement, quote unquote, about Grant Hill teaming up with Tracy McGrady, that was much ado about nothing. Grant Hill was not the same player anymore. Of course, they're about to go into the little spiel about Tim Duncan was about to sign with Orlando. And to me, I'm not quite sure if Tim Duncan would have made the Orlando Magic a championship team. He certainly would have made them a real contender. Tracy McGrady, and I always look at this as a black mark on his resume. He was never, ever able to get his team out of the first round. And under his stewardship, he gave up a 3-1 lead to the Detroit Pistons. And even though the Detroit Pistons were a better team than his team, once you get a team down 3-1, you have to find a way as an alpha on your squad, as one of the top 3 to 5 best players in the league, to seal the deal. That's why I even state Kobe Bryant giving up that 3-1 lead to Phoenix. That's a black mark on his resume, even though we know that he was one of the great players ever, and we know that that Phoenix Suns team was a better team than that Laker team. But just to get back to the point, do I think that Grant Hill, T-Mac, and Tim Duncan would have been enough to win a championship? I'm not quite sure, but I doubt it. And that also pokes holes into the theory about how loyal Tim Duncan was to the Spurs franchise. He was ready to leave.
And of course, that is where the story diverts. Those of you who watch The Jump regularly have heard T-Mac opine on what might have been if Hill hadn't had that devastating series of injuries. And when it comes to the what if of Grant's career, that's actually only the half of it. On our All-Star show last year, Grant came on to tell the story of, well, here. Have you heard Tim Duncan talk about the fact that he was ready to join y'all in Orlando until Doc Rivers said, no, your family cannot come on the team plane, and that's what made him stay in San Antonio?
Shows you how much of an idiot Doc Rivers is. It wouldn't surprise me if Doc Rivers got that protocol from Pat Riley. Doc was the point guard of the New York Knicks for that one season in 92-93, and Pat Riley was very impactful on many of those players who played for him. And he also had a policy forbidding family members from riding with the team. If I remember correctly, the only time that he broke that policy was in the 1985 finals, when he allowed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's father to ride on the team bus with the team to try to raise Kareem's spirit, to raise the morale of the team after they got blown out in Game 1.
Rachel, not only have I heard that, I was there. I was going to say I made my visit with Tim Duncan.
Okay.
And I was at the dinner when someone in Tim's entourage, I'll just leave it that way, asked Doc, can significant others travel on the plane? And Doc said no. And you could go, like, it was just like the energy at the table. And afterwards, my wife was like, we were dating with my wife. Yeah, we were married then. My wife said, he should have just lied. He should have said.
Absolutely, he should have just lied. Once you get these guys to sign their name to the dotted line, you can make up anything. You can say, guys, we've decided to change that practice, that policy, because I've conferred with the owner, and the owner thinks that it's not in the team's best interest to have wives on the plane. We don't want too much fraternizing of players and significant others. Something like that. He could have made up anything. There's an old saying that you make exceptions for exceptional people. When you want to be too dogmatic, oftentimes that will hold you back from success.
Yes. Of course.
And there's a reason why Doc Rivers has happened to be the coach on not one, but two teams that have given up 3-1 leads in the playoffs. He gave up a 3-1 lead as the coach of Orlando when they lost to Detroit, I believe in 2001 or 2002, one of those seasons. And he also was the coach of the LA Clippers when they gave up a 3-1 lead to the Rockets, I believe in, was it 2015? I think it was 2015. And he was the coach of the Celtics when they gave up a 3-2 lead against the Lakers in 2010. So Doc has always been a little bit overrated as a coach. He's a very good coach, but he's a bit overrated.
First of all, he should have said yes and meant it. Look at T-Mac. Look at T-Mac.
Oh, you know what? When Doc got to Boston,
through his league.
Listen, when Doc got to Boston, he allowed family and play.
Of course, because he learned from that shit. And he was on his last legs in Boston as a coach, so he knew he had to change and loosen up his protocol.
He didn't want to make that
don't say that,
again.
man.
And I think that's the reason we got KG, because he said his family could be on the plane.
Well, at least he learned from his lesson.
Yeah, you saw T-Mac and Grant. My chest. That was painful. And over the years, I've heard Grant tell all sorts of stories of near misses like that, and maybes, coaches that didn't know quite how to use him once he got hurt, additional surgeries that didn't go as planned, a staph infection that nearly killed him. And as he's told these stories, it was frankly obvious that sometimes how good he was, well, it actually was getting lost even on him. As he said just this week, when he thinks about his career, quote, I've tended to focus on the struggles. Hill went on to say that's...
Of course, because he looks back and he says to himself, had I not suffered that debilitating ankle injury, I may have went down as one of the top 15 greatest players to ever play, because he was kind of sort of trending in that direction in regards to his impact on the game. He was very LeBron James-esque. Physically, of course, he was not as dominant as LeBron, but they played a very similar style of game.
That's why this induction tonight to the Hall is so validating because, quote, it confirmed I actually did some good things. My hope is that it confirms it for everyone else, too.
I'm not quite sure if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but I do think that Grant Hill deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, if for no other reason what he was able to do his first 6 years in the NBA, in addition to his success as a member of the Duke Blue Devils, where he was a very important member of that back-to-back championship team. I believe they won back-to-back titles in 92 and it was 91 and 92. Because 93, the North Carolina Tar Heels, they're the ones who beat the Michigan Wolverines in that timeout game, and Chris Webber called timeout. Now, Chris Webber deserves to be in the Hall of Fame also. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame over Tracy McGrady. At least with Grant Hill, I could look at his career and say, well, he was trending upward. He's also a great statesman, a great ambassador for the league, for the NBA, and he had a very good career, great college career. So I can see why they push him into the Hall of Fame so fast. But T-Mac, I'm not quite sure about that one. T-Mac must know somebody.
Because, yeah, Grant is a really great guy. And now as a broadcaster, that is the side of him that people tend to see. And, yeah, because of his injuries, he is one of the most prominent what-if players in the history of the sport.
No doubt. The two biggest what-if players of the last 20-plus years, Grant Hill and Penny Hardaway.
Sport. But even with all of that, the man could hoop. And he doesn't need to be inducted tonight to prove it. Just in case, though, it's now going to be engraved up there, in writing, for good. And, Paul, you competed against all the headliners for tonight's Hall of Fame class.
Yes.
And I do want to start with Grant Hill. Tell us what it was like going against him. For the kids who only know him as the injured guy or the really nice guy on the broadcast.
Well, for one, I patterned my game after Grant Hill. You know, I used to watch him when he was at Duke. Every night, whenever he played, and you know, he was one of the first guys that was like a forward that handled the ball, can bring it up, pass, do everything like a guard. And I remember as a rookie matching up against him, he left me absolutely helpless. This is the one time I felt helpless on the court. It was like last 3 minutes of the game, and he either scored on me, I fouled him, or he dished it to somebody for a score. And I remember saying to myself, like, this guy is pretty much unstoppable. And, you know, he deserved everything he gets because he was on his way, you know, to being the best player in the league in his prime. You know, he was right there with Michael Jordan.
Well, not quite. Grant Hill was right there with a Scottie Pippen, but not Michael Jordan. He was trending upward to being pushed as the new ambassador for the NBA. That's why I state he was right in that ilk of Michael Jordan and Dr. J as a representative for the NBA. Not quite as a player, but he was building up towards that.
I mean, he's, like you said, he's a great man, and he's a great leader on and off the court. He's a great role model. And for myself, I actually got to meet him at a speaking conference where he was inspiring children. So I think this class, you know, whether it's Kidd, Grant Hill, they're all role models for all kids.
Yeah,
he was the LeBron before LeBron.
Yeah.
Just that
I would agree with that, sir.
versatile forward who could do it all, pass, very athletic, and this is what Grant Hill was, what you're seeing LeBron. LeBron, bigger, a little stronger, a little more athletic, but this is who Grant Hill was, a ball-handling forward who could do everything.
And it's amazing to me because, yes, there are so many other great things about him. As you mentioned, the speaker, he's been very involved in politics. He's talked about maybe he'd like to run for office one day. Part owner of the Atlanta Hawks that he, is broadcaster. The injuries, of course, we always talk about. The basketball shouldn't get lost in this, and that is why he is being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Well, not quite, Rachel Nichols. Let's not be disingenuous. The basketball is not the only reason why he's going into the Hall of Fame this quick. He's going into the Hall of Fame very quickly because he's very well liked. He's known as being a great representative, a great ambassador for the NBA. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you can use that to add a little barbecue sauce onto your career, it is what it is.
To get the truth, though, about the other inductees tonight. So give me Jason Kidd, the truth on Jason Kidd.
Jason Kidd, he gives me nightmares. In 2002, I will never forget playing against this guy. We beat them 4 times that year. Mm-hmm. We were supposed to go to the finals. Jay Kidd averaged a triple-double.
Jason Kidd is probably one of the top 5 most impactful players in regards to being able to influence a team going from nothing to something that I've seen over the last 25 years.
And there was nothing we can do about it. After that, I was like, Jason Kidd is the greatest player I've ever played against.
That dude came to the New Jersey Nets in the early 2000s and turned a moribund franchise into a repeat NBA Finals participant.
I mean, just the things he could do. He was a magician with the ball. He ran the fast break like Magic Johnson. And then as he got older, he shot the three. He's a championship guard.
And he was a great defender. Great defender. He was not a good shooter, but he was a great defender.
Also, a guy from California who I look at this in the conference finals. This is what he averaged.
Yep.
Triple-double. Who does that? Who does that back in 2002?
Right, with those.
Well, you actually loved Jason Kidd getting triple-doubles because you knew he was getting triple-doubles to initiate the offense. He wasn't trying to get triple-doubles just to get his name in the record books like a certain player who plays today in Oklahoma City.
Right, with those defensive rules.
Yeah, like, you see more players do it now, but he did it then. It was like, how do you guard this guy? He can't shoot, but he found so many other ways to beat you. And he should have been MVP that year, but I think they gave it to Tim Duncan.
Also, please,
Well, Tim actually deserved it, but Jason Kidd, if they had split the MVP award, there would not have been a problem with that.
somebody bring up that he was an expert mind master of sort of how, the spilled soda was one thing later on when he was a
next
coach,
level.
but
I played on that team.
Well, that's next level sneaky. Somebody who could think of something like that fast, you got to watch him all around.
It's basketball IQ. I like the transition from player to coach, and it sort of opened the gates for players, especially point guards, saying, you know what, I can be a coach after this is all said and done.
yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say that he opened the gates for that. Lenny Wilkins was a great point guard who became a head coach. Magic Johnson was a head coach for a very short spell. The great Isaiah Thomas also became a head coach in the early 2000s. So I would not say that Jason Kidd opened the door for that. You can make the case that he opened the door for being able to go straight from your career to a head coaching position. But in regards to him being able to become a head coach as a point guard or a former point guard, that has been done before.
Absolutely. You played on that team?
Yes.
I'm not sure I connected that dot.
I played on that team. His first coaching experience in Brooklyn.
And do you remember the Spill It On Me?
Oh, yeah. I was right there.
That was quick thinking. That was next level.
That was quick thinking.
Come on. All right. The truth on Steve Nash. Go.
Two-time MVP in the era with Kobe, Duncan, Shaq. I mean, how does this guy win 2 MVPs? That's how good he was.
Well,
Steve Nash was not just good, he was great, particularly on offense. But the reason why Steve Nash won 2 consecutive MVPs in the mid-2000s was because of what he represented and what the Phoenix Suns represented. They represented a departure from hero ball. They were like a crack of light in a dark cave in the early 2000s where you had a bevy of games ending 78-76, 83-81. The NBA, they were losing ratings. Their ratings were going down precipitously. And when the Phoenix Suns and Mike D'Antoni introduced this system in the mid-2000s, I mean, there was a moment where in the early 2000s, the NBA was in so much trouble that they had to almost kind of force Michael Jordan to come back to assist them because Jordan wanted to purchase an NBA franchise. And David Stern basically informed Jordan that he would assist him in becoming the owner of an NBA franchise as long as he came back to play for his Jewish Kabbalistic buddy Abe Pollin and the Washington Wizards. And Abe Pollin would transition the team over to Jordan. As we know, they tricked Jordan, but the reason why they wanted Jordan to come back was because the league's ratings were going down so quickly. Because everybody was playing this kick it back down to the center, then kick it out to the wing. The wing will go in between his legs 5,000 times and jack up a shot even when he was double teamed. That was how Vince Carter and Allen Iverson and Paul Pierce and Tracy McGrady, that's how they were playing, because who they learned that from? They learned that from Michael Jordan. Or at least that's what they thought they were watching when they watched Michael Jordan. But the difference was that when Michael Jordan played hero ball, he was shooting 50%. When these guys played hero ball, they were shooting 39, 40%. Go look up the stats in the early 2000s. You have players shooting 40, 41% from the field. The NBA could not have that. So just to get back to the point, you had a couple of teams in the early 2000s that were shooting the ball well, that were scoring a lot of points. Those 2 teams being the Sacramento Kings and the Dallas Mavericks. When Steve Nash went to the Phoenix Suns under Mike D'Antoni, and they started to bring back that running gun, move the ball, look for the open shooter, that's why the NBA awarded Steve Nash. Not just for his proficiency, but also what he represented. He was bringing back that 1980s style of NBA offense.
That's That's how
There's
good
some
he made
people
his
who
team.
ask that question even today, but continue.
That's how good he made his team. This guy's a two-time MVP in the era we have Duncan, Shaq, Kobe, Iverson, guys like Tracy McGrady, Garnett,
Paul Pierce.
This guy's a back-to-back MVP. What else can you say? It's unfortunate that run that they had because of the bench clearing.
Right.
Versus the San Antonio Spurs. I believe the Suns would have won the championship game.
Oh, they definitely would have, because they would have beat LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2007. But they have no one to blame but themselves.
And they certainly feel that way, right? Absolutely.
Yes, I agree. And his passing to me is just magical. And in the WNBA, we like to be a pass-first league. Point guards, you talk about Sue Bird.
Right.
It's like she's the Steve Nash of the WNBA. So for me, as a post, you love passers. You love passers. So for me, I'm talking to my point guards like, okay, you see this? You watch this video?
Right.
This is what we can have. He was
Absolutely.
Now, Steve Nash is a player that you can call a system player, but he would have been great on any team running any system because he was so proficient. Certain brothers will remember this player from the late 80s into the 90s, a player by the name of Mark Price, who played with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He was someone who was a forerunner of that style of play that Steve Nash exhibited in the mid-2000s, where he could shoot the long ball, he could shoot the mid-range, he had a great handle, great free throw shooter, great passer. Mark Price was a lot like Steve Nash, but very few people know about him because he played in an era where he was not allowed to take whatever shot he wanted to take or move the ball wherever he wanted to move it, where basically everything worked through him. Steve Nash on Phoenix had everything running through him.
an inspiration, not just, young kids and players, but also for point guards in both leagues.
Yes.
You know how they say Kobe is the closest thing to Jordan, but Steve Nash and Steph Curry, those are two good comparisons.
We had him on yesterday and we asked him, sir, what...
I don't really see much in common with Steve Nash and Steph Curry. That's just me. I think that Steve Nash is a far better passer than Steph Curry, even though Steph Curry is a good passer. Steph makes a lot of big mistakes. He makes a lot of mental errors. Steve Nash is one of the top 10 passers in NBA history. Maybe even higher than that, but certainly top 10 in overall passing ability. The thing about Nash is that, once again, he was so proficient. Had he chosen to shoot the ball more, who knows what he may have done. But he was a repeat 50, 40, 90 guy. I believe that Steph has only done that once.
What player do you see today? And he obviously says Steph right away. And they work together now up in the Warriors, and just watching them on the court. Every time I'm over practice and the two of them are tooling around, it's so cool.
They find ways to keep getting better and better and better.
All right. You, of course, won a title with Ray Allen, so we're going to talk about him a little bit more in depth. Last night, Kendrick Perkins congratulated Ray on his Hall of Fame induction, including the caption, "One day until we will be united again." Now, this is after Ray...
The 2008 Boston Celtics, they sound like a cult who are upset with Ray Allen for escaping the compound. It's like they spend so much more time talking about him than he spends talking about them. He certainly seems to be over the whole experience. Unfortunately for them, they still have not moved past it.
He came on our show earlier in the day and said no one from the 2008 team at that point had congratulated him. So now Kendrick's done it. And I just want to know, we'll give you a shot in a minute, but tell me, should Ray be getting congratulated by more of your former teammates? How do you feel about how all this is going down?
First of all, just making the Hall of Fame is a tremendous honor. Whether it's a former teammate, just players in general respect Ray and are going to congratulate him for making this high achievement. Will the other players do it? Probably so. I mean, put all the things beside what was done back in 2010 or 2012.
But why are we here now still? Because there was some...
The reason why we're here now is because you members of the mainstream liberal sports media are overly obsessed with quote-unquote beef that's going on in the locker room or issues that have already been resolved. Ray Allen has moved forward. He's done with it. Ray Allen is good. And I think that bothers them more than the alternative. They wish that Ray Allen cared as much as they do about a quote-unquote relationship that has been expired really since 2008. Because ever since they won their first and only championship as a unit, they pretty much started to go downhill. And I think that Ray Allen was ready to leave for years before he actually left. And that's normally the case in separations. If two people depart from one another in 2018, they were probably ready to depart back in 2015 or 2016. So Ray's good. He has his family. Move forward. Get over it.
Some kind of thawing a little bit, and then he did put a book out. Where are we with all that?
I thought, last year I saw Ray in China. We squashed everything we had, but he understood where I came from. So I wanted to make that clear, why I stood where I stood with him. So that got cleared. Then, he wrote a book that kind of rubbed some of the other guys the wrong way, just when I was trying to mend the fences. So, some things are said, guys tend to take to heart. But to me, I heard Ray say yesterday, it's all water under the bridge for me. So, and that's for him and the other guys to figure out. That's for him. But I have no problem with Ray. Congratulations. Everything he's gotten, he's deserved. His name's going to be up there forever, and I congratulate you, Ray.
Oh, see, that's very nice, right? Cool. There we go. We got one other one.
Yay!
Do you think, knowing Kevin Garnett and Rajon Rondo like you do you think that at the whatever anniversary of that banner going up, do you think that you guys will be on the court together?
All came.
Well, the real question is going to be that by the time that it comes time for them to try to assemble for an anniversary, will Kevin Garnett have car fare to get there? Will he be able to get into an Uber? Because his wife is going to take all his damn money.
Came together, it'll be all love, So, those things, they dissolve over time.
Yes.
Things.
A lot of things dissolve over time, brother. Sometimes beef dissolves over time, and sometimes rapport with others, relationships dissolve over time just as well. Once again, I believe that Ray Allen is over it. It's time for these other guys to get over it. I have no idea why people take these things so personally when a player decides to go from one team to another. Back in the day when you were kids, when you were adolescents, when you were teenagers, you went to the park, you went to the YMCA or whatever with 8, 9, 10 dudes. You played a couple of games, 2 teams. After the games was over, y'all might change teams. It is what it is. It's not that big a deal.
Time heals all wounds.
Yes.
And so, eventually, it'll be behind us.
Eventually, I know Kevin Garnett. You know him much better than we do. Eventually.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe like a congrats fam text. So it's like, you did it, it's Hall of Fame, first child getting born,
right.
Wedding day. You have to do those kind of things.
Sure,
right.
For sure.
Right. We'll see.
You have to do that if you care. If they don't care, don't send a fake text. It's okay. It is what it is. Ray's family still loves him, I'm sure.
We'll see what happens.
Okay.
Could be a long road. Coming up, LeBron.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. Congratulations to Ray Allen, Steve Nash. But anyway, that's it on that. Congratulations to Ray Allen, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, and Grant Hill. So peace.